Millions of jars labeled as honey are anything but real honey. And if you've been drizzling it on your toast or mixing it into your tea, it may be quietly impacting your gut, your liver, and even your immune system. In today's video, we're uncovering 12 of the worst honey brands sold across British supermarkets, products that look pure on the packaging but failed laboratory testing. And at the end, we'll reveal 5 of the cleanest, most reliable honey brands you can genuinely feel confident about using. Plus, I'll show you how to detect fake honey in seconds simply by reading the label. This is the honey truth they absolutely don't want you to know. Let's begin with number 1. 1. Rouse Blended Honey. If there's one honey brand almost every British household recognizes, it's Rouse. The iconic squeezable bottle, the friendly little bee logo, Britain's #1 honey brand, found in virtually every supermarket in the country. But flip that bottle around and read what it actually says: blend of non-EU honeys. That one phrase should immediately trigger alarm bells. It means the honey inside could come from anywhere on the planet: China, Vietnam, Turkey, and you'd never know. No specific country mentioned, no region identified, no beekeeper you can trace back to. Rouse claims their honey is triple tested and 100% pure. But here's what they don't openly share. Reports suggest Rouse may have stopped buying honey from British beekeepers altogether. The very company that built its reputation on British honey now sources globally from, as they say, all major honey-producing continents, including Asia. And when 77% of UK honey imports come from China and 74% of Chinese honey is suspected to be fraudulent, that blend of non-EU honeys label begins to look very different. Even the price exposes the truth. Rouse's British Oxfordshire wildflower honey costs £2 per 100 grams. Their blended honey costs just 58p per 100 grams, over 3 times cheaper. Ask yourself, how can one honey cost a third of the other when both come from the same company? The answer isn't efficiency. It's what's actually inside the jar. And if Britain's biggest honey brand can't guarantee the purity of their best-selling products, what about the supermarket-owned brands millions of families rely on every week? The next one might already be sitting in your kitchen. 2. Tesco Clear Honey. Tesco's Clear Honey is sold in thousands of stores, bought by families who assume the Tesco brand equals quality. But when researchers performed more than 240 tests per sample, Tesco's Clear Honey was specifically named among those that failed. The tests detected psicose, a sugar that does not exist naturally in genuine honey. Its presence is a direct indicator of syrup adulteration. They also found irregular enzyme patterns. When confronted, Tesco admitted that a more transparent honey testing system was needed. Read that again. Britain's biggest supermarket acknowledged their testing wasn't good enough. Yet the same honey still sits on shelves today, still labeled pure, still purchased by millions who have no idea what independent laboratories uncovered. The label says pure. The testing says otherwise. And if Tesco's honey raised serious concerns, what about its biggest competitor just down the street? 3. Sainsbury's Clear Honey. Sainsbury's markets itself as the quality choice, the supermarket for shoppers who care about what they feed their families. Their honey carries the same reassuring, pure label you'd expect. But the same investigation that flagged Tesco also named Sainsbury's Clear Honey among products showing evidence of adulteration. The test revealed enzyme signatures consistent with syrup extension, not the natural enzymes found in real honey, but markers suggesting dilution and processing, designed to stretch real honey further while keeping costs low. Sainsbury's Taste the Difference range charges premium prices, but their standard Clear Honey follows the same EU and non-EU blend formula, allowing untraceable origins and unverifiable purity. Premium branding does not guarantee premium honey. Sometimes it just guarantees premium profit margins on the same questionable product. And this brings us to another major supermarket whose value promise is central to its identity: Asda. 4. Asda Set Pure Honey. Asda built its reputation on being the affordable choice for hard-working families watching every penny. Their Set Pure Honey is cheaper than many rivals. The label proudly says pure, but that word becomes meaningless without rigorous testing behind it. Independent analysis specifically listed Asda Set Pure Honey among supermarket honeys containing sucrose, that unmistakable marker of sugar syrup adulteration. The same tests found enzyme abnormalities, suggesting the honey had been extended with cheap sweeteners. What makes this particularly concerning is that Asda customers often include families on strict budgets, the people who can least afford to spend money on products that aren't what they claim to be. They're paying for honey and receiving something completely different. The savings on the price tag are an illusion. When the jar contains diluted product, you're not getting value. You're getting less honey stretched with syrups that cost a fraction of genuine honey. And Asda isn't alone among budget-friendly options. The Co-op has spent decades building trust as the ethical choice, but their honey tells another story. 5. Co-op Clear Honey. The Co-op has presented itself as the supermarket with principles, fair trade, ethical sourcing, community responsibility. But Co-op Clear Honey appeared in the same investigation that exposed other major supermarkets. Testing revealed the same indicators: syrup contamination, enzyme irregularities, and adulteration signatures. 9 out of 13 supermarket own brand honeys tested contained syrup. 10 out of 13 showed enzyme markers indicating adulteration with inverted syrup, and Co-op was among them. Ethical branding and actual product quality are two separate things. You can print values on your website and still sell honey that fails laboratory scrutiny. The real question isn't whether supermarkets have good intentions, it's whether their supply chains can deliver genuine honey in a global market flooded with sophisticated fakes and massive financial incentives to cut corners. If even the ethical supermarket can't ensure authentic honey, what about the discount retailers where low price is everything? 6. Aldi Bramwell's Honey. Aldi promises one thing: same quality, lower prices. Aldi's Bramwell's Honey range sits alongside well-known branded competitors at just a fraction of the price. It seems like a smart choice for shoppers trying to stretch their budget, but there is a point where the numbers simply no longer make sense. When you see honey being sold for 75p a jar, you're not looking at an amazing deal, you're looking at a red flag. Real honey costs roughly £3.50 per kilogram at minimum wholesale price. That is the absolute baseline for genuine honey. Meanwhile, rice syrup, the adulterant favoured because it is difficult to detect in standard honey tests, costs just 40 to 60p per kilogram. Do the math. At a retail price of 75p, once packaging, transportation, and retailer profit margins are paid for, what amount of actual honey could realistically be inside? As master beekeeper Lynn Ingram puts it bluntly, if you see honey for as little as 75p a jar, it's too good to be true. Aldi's Bramwell's Honey carries the familiar label, blend of EU and non-EU honeys. No country named, no traceability offered, no way to verify what's genuinely in the jar. The discount price isn't a miracle of efficiency. It's a reflection of what you are actually buying. And Aldi's German competitor takes an almost identical approach. 7. Lidl Blossom Honey. Lidl and Aldi compete neck and neck on price, and their honey strategies are essentially clones of one another. Lidl's Blossom Honey is sold at the same rock-bottom prices and carries the same blend of non-EU honeys label wording that conceals the true origin of the contents completely. The discount supermarket business model depends on aggressive cost-cutting. And when 77% of UK honey imports come from China at around £18 per kilogram compared to £19 per kilogram for authentic Manuka, it's obvious which sourcing decisions these retailers will make. These aren't immoral companies. They're perfectly rational companies operating in a marketplace where adulterated honey is cheaper, more profitable, harder to detect, and almost never penalized. The problem isn't the supermarkets. It's the system that allows fraudulent honey to saturate British shelves while enforcement remains virtually non-existent. 8. Morrison's own brand honey. Morrison's honey range stretches from budget options to pricier premium jars. But turn any of them around and you'll see the same vague description. Blend of EU and non-EU honeys. No individual countries listed. No percentages stated. No traceability whatsoever. The EU introduced new regulations in 2024 requiring exact country of origin labelling, including percentages listed in descending order. France, Spain, and Germany must now explicitly tell consumers where their honey comes from. The UK left before these protections were enforced, so British labels can still hide behind that meaningless blended wording. Morrison's could voluntarily adopt transparent labelling. They could list their source countries and percentages. They simply choose not to. When a company can tell you exactly which farm raised their beef or chickens, but refuses to identify where their honey comes from, you have to question why. The answer usually points to supply chains that would crumble under scrutiny. Now let's move into a category many shoppers never expect to find problems in. 9. Holland & Barrett Manuka Honey. Holland & Barrett is widely seen as Britain's trusted health retailer. When you walk into their stores, you expect products that actually match their wellness claims. Their Manuka honey takes centre stage, displayed prominently and sold at £20 to £60 per jar. But Manuka honey has a simple mathematical problem that should worry every consumer. New Zealand produces just 1,700 tonnes of genuine Manuka honey each year. Yet the world sells around 10,000 tonnes. As Australian beekeepers point out, 10 times more Manuka honey is sold globally than actually produced. When researchers tested Manuka products in the UK, only 1-inch 7 was authentic. That's a 14% authenticity rate for a product sold at premium medicinal level pricing. UMF and MGO ratings meant to guarantee quality can be manipulated. Synthetic methyl glyoxal can be added to artificially boost MGO test results. Without strict third-party verification, that expensive Manuka may simply be ordinary honey with chemicals added to mimic the properties of real Manuka. You pay £40 or more because you believe you're buying a therapeutic honey with unique antibacterial qualities. But with only 14% of tested products proving genuine, you are likely paying a premium price for standard honey dressed in a premium label. Consumers trust health retailers to uphold higher standards. But the supply chain reality rarely matches that expectation. And speaking of trusted health environments, 10. Boots' own brand honey. Boots, as a pharmacy, creates an automatic assumption of quality. You wouldn't expect a pharmacy to sell fake vitamins, so you naturally don't question whether their honey is authentic. But the honey aisle is not regulated like the pharmacy counter. There is no pharmacist verifying purity. There is no controlled medicinal supply chain. There is just another jar labelled with the same blend of EU and non-EU honeys, sitting on a pharmacy shelf just as it would in a supermarket. The clean aisles and medical branding create the illusion of high-quality honey. But the jar contains whatever the global honey market supplied. The same honey that scored a 100% failure rate when EU testing examined British samples. Trust must be earned, not assumed because a retailer wears a white coat. 11. Gales Honey. Gales has been a familiar name in British households for generations. The brand recognition runs deep. Your parents likely bought Gales, and your grandparents almost certainly did. But brand heritage and current product quality are two entirely different things. Today's Gales honey follows the same pattern as every other mass-market brand. Blended origins, untraceable supply chains, and prices that make it nearly impossible for the product to be financially viable unless adulteration is involved. The classic squeeze bottles and nostalgic packaging remind consumers of the past, but the honey inside has changed along with the global honey fraud epidemic. What was once genuine honey decades ago may now be identical to the adulterated blends filling nearly every British supermarket shelf. Legacy means nothing when supply chains evolve. The Gales your grandmother trusted is not necessarily the Gales being sold today. 12. Iceland Clear Honey. Iceland has built its reputation as the freezer specialist, catering to budget-focused families. Honey isn't a headline product for them, it's just another grocery item, priced aggressively and sourced to maximize profit. At Iceland's ultra-low price points, the same mathematical impossibility applies. Real honey simply cannot reach shelves at these prices after accounting for packaging, transport, and retailer margins. Something must give, and what gives is authenticity. The investigation that found 96% of supermarket honey suspicious did not distinguish between premium grocers and value chains. The contamination problem spans the entire market. Iceland operates in the same tainted marketplace, with the same tainted supply chains. Budget retailers aren't villains, they're simply responding to customer demand for cheaper products. But low prices achieved through adulteration aren't real savings. They're fraud, shifted quietly from the supply chain into your kitchen cupboard. Fortunately, you don't have to rely on regulators to protect you. Here are 5 trustworthy honey brands you can confidently choose. 1. Hilltop Honey. If there is one brand that proves genuine honey is still achievable, it's Hilltop. Founded in Wales in 2011, Hilltop has grown into Britain's largest independent honey company without sacrificing authenticity. They were the first UK honey brand to earn B Corp certification, which means they meet exceptionally high standards for social and environmental responsibility. They also hold BRCGS Grade A food safety certification. Hilltop has been conducting in-house authenticity testing since 2019, long before most companies even acknowledged honey fraud as a real issue. Most importantly, every Hilltop jar features a QR code, giving full traceability down to the country and even the region of origin. No vague blend of non-EU honeys labels, just complete openness about exactly where your honey was produced. Hilltop Honey is available at Tesco, Sainsbury's and other major retailers for around £3.60 to £5 for a 720 grams jar. It costs more than the suspicious alternatives, but you're paying for actual honey, not diluted syrup. 2. The London Honey Company. For guaranteed 100% British honey, the London Honey Company sets the benchmark. Every jar contains genuinely British honey, sourced from more than 500 apiaries across the UK. Their honey is unpasteurized and cold filtered, meaning the natural enzymes, pollen, and beneficial compounds remain intact, unlike fake or ultra-processed honey, where these are destroyed. They never blend with imported honey. They never hide origins. At £8 to £10 per 250 grams, the price reflects the true cost of producing real British honey. UK beekeepers cannot compete with £18 per kilo Chinese imports on price. They can only compete on authenticity. You can find London Honey Company products at Abel & Cole, John Lewis, Fortnum and Mason, and of course on their own website. When a jar costs what real honey should cost, you know you're getting the genuine article. 3. Chainbridge Honey Farm. Operating since 1948 near the Scottish border in Northumberland, Chainbridge Honey Farm represents authentic British beekeeping done the right way. They produce honey from 1,500 to 1,800 of their own hives. Not global sourcing. Not anonymous blends. Just honey from their own bees and their own apiaries, guaranteed authenticity through complete traceability. This is what honey looked like before global supply chains turned adulteration into a profitable industry. A family-run farm, decades of beekeeping experience, and absolute certainty about what's in each jar. You can literally visit the farm, see the hives, and meet the beekeepers. Try doing that with a blend of non-EU honeys. 4. Black Bee Honey. Black Bee Honey is another B Corp certified brand focused entirely on single-origin British honey. No blending, no anonymous imports, every jar is tied to a specific British location. They donate 2% of their turnover to creating wildflower meadows that support the survival of British bees. So they're not just selling honey, they're actively strengthening the ecosystem that makes honey possible. 5. Local BBKA beekeepers. The British Beekeepers Association represents more than 30,000 members nationwide. Many sell honey locally through farmers' markets, farm shops, or directly from their apiaries. Visit bbka.org.uk and use their Beekeeper Finder tool to locate producers near you. When you buy from a local beekeeper, you get total certainty about authenticity. You can meet the beekeeper, see the hives, and ask questions no supermarket, even a premium one, can ever answer. Local honey can also help hay fever sufferers because it contains pollen from plants in your area. This is impossible with imported blends, which often have all pollen removed specifically to hide their geographical origin. As the BBKA chair said, "We will continue to champion the benefits of local honey in an era of increasing debate over the composition of imported honey. When the debate is this intense, the safest choice is the producer you can actually meet." Now let me show you exactly how to protect yourself. Read the label like a detective. The single most effective thing you can do takes 3 seconds. Flip the jar over and check the origin statement. If it says, "blend of EU and non-EU honeys," put it back. That phrase legally hides any country, including the 77% of UK imports that come from China. If it says blend of non-EU honeys, that's even worse. It might as well say origin unknown, possibly fraudulent. What you want to see is a specific country. Even better, a specific region. Best of all, a named beekeeper or apiary. Product of UK means British bees and British production. This is trustworthy. Packed in UK means nothing at all. The honey could come from anywhere. The price test. Real honey has a minimum cost below which authenticity is impossible. Wholesale honey costs around £3.50 per kilogram minimum. After packaging, shipping, retailer margins, and profit, genuine honey cannot be sold for less than £5 per kilogram at retail. If you see 340 grams jars for 75p, the math simply doesn't add up. Something other than honey is filling that jar. Use this rule of thumb. Genuine British honey costs £8 plus per jar. Quality single origin imports. £5, £8. Anything under £2 likely indicates adulteration. The discount is not a bargain, it's a warning. The clarity test. Hold the jar up to the light. Real honey is not perfectly clear. It usually has a natural cloudiness from pollen or microscopic beeswax particles. Its color varies based on the flowers the bees visited, anything from pale yellow to dark amber. Fake or ultra-filtered honey tends to be crystal clear with a uniform, glassy appearance. That level of clarity is unnatural and signals heavy processing. When honey looks too perfect, it probably isn't real. The crystallization test. Place your honey jar in the refrigerator for a few days. Watch carefully what happens. Real honey crystallizes naturally. It forms fine, even crystals almost like soft granulated sugar. This is completely normal and is actually a sign of authenticity. Fake honey, especially honey bulked out with corn or rice syrup, often won't crystallize at all. Or it may separate into 2 layers, a watery layer floating on top and a sugary layer settling below. Or it may create large, coarse, uneven crystals that look nothing like the smooth crystallization of genuine honey. If your honey stays perfectly liquid and runny even after weeks in the fridge, consider that suspicious. Real honey thickens and crystallizes. Over time, this is its natural behavior. The water test. Drop a spoonful of honey into a glass of room temperature water. Do not stir. Real honey sinks straight to the bottom and stays together as a single mass. It does not dissolve instantly. Even when you gently swirl the water, genuine honey dissolves very slowly. Fake or syrup extended honey dissolves rapidly. It spreads through the water immediately, creating streaky, sugary trails. It behaves exactly like the sugar syrup it actually is. The spoon test. Dip a spoon into the honey and slowly lift it out. Watch how the honey falls. Real honey is thick and viscous. It forms a continuous strand or ribbon, sometimes curling at the end, before it finally breaks. It flows slowly and stays cohesive. Fake honey is thin and runny. It breaks into droplets right away and falls straight down, just like commercial syrup. The paper test. Place a drop of honey onto a paper towel or a plain white napkin. Wait for 1 minute. Pure honey is thick and keeps its shape. It hardly soaks through the paper, if at all. Diluted honey, especially with high water content, spreads quickly. It seeps into the paper and leaves a noticeable wet ring. If the honey soaks through immediately and spreads like water, it is not pure. Every time you pick up a jar labeled blend of EU and non-EU honeys, you're taking a gamble. And statistically, the odds say you're losing. But now you know exactly what to look for. You know which brands failed testing. You know which producers you can actually trust. You know the price ranges where genuine honey is possible and where it's not. Regulators aren't protecting you. Supermarkets aren't protecting you. The global supply chain definitely isn't protecting you. But you can protect yourself. Buy from producers you can verify. Pay the price that real honey truly costs. Read the labels that try to hide the truth. Real honey is worth seeking out. It contains enzymes, antioxidants, and beneficial nutrients that fake honey destroys. It supports British beekeepers rather than fraudulent import operations. Which one shocked you the most? Share your experience in the comments. And if you want to watch another video like this, click the video on the screen. Thanks for watching.